Hey, what's going on guys, TurtyWurty here, and welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial for version 1.18. In this tutorial I'm going to be covering natural entity spawning, and so we can get our entity to spawn naturally. I meant to cover this a while back, but I completely forgot about it, so let's just get started. So the first thing I want to do is I kind of want to repurpose our ore generation class, or at very least this class right here is what I want to try and repurpose. So I'm actually going to I'll keep this actual ore generation class. I'm just going to go ahead and take this out and put it in its own class. So let's come into our event package, which we created a few episodes ago, and let's create a new class. I'm just going to call this a forge, a common forge events. Okay, and I'm simply just going to copy paste this whole thing and make sure I also copy paste this top level annotation. There we go, and now I can just remove that from in there. There we go, much nicer. Okay, so this should all work perfectly fine. Since you've just copy pasted it, we should have no issues. There is one thing I do want to make sure I do, and that is to set the priority to event priority.highest. This is generally something you want to do with the biome loading event specifically, just to make sure it does run. You want to make sure it's a high priority so that it runs correctly. Now, what we want to do in here to get our entity to generate is we need to go ahead and register a spawn for it. And we can do this by going event.get spawns, and this will give you the mob spawn settings builder. So this is a builder that you can add to, and in here we just want to do add spawn. Here you can type the category of mob that you want to spawn. So I'm going to be spawning my entity. I'm just going to give it creature. Not sure exactly what this category does. I don't know if it does anything specific with it. I assume not. Well, I assume it must, otherwise it wouldn't ask for it. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think it's too big of a deal, but I'm sure you can test out the different ones and see what it changes. It must change something. And then for this second parameter, we need a spawner data. So this is just the data of what we want to spawn, and this is very simple, so it's just a new spawner data. First we can provide the entity type, so it's just entity init dot example entity dot get. Then it wants the weight, so basically the higher the weight, the more there will be. I'm going to give it a weight of 5, and then it is the minimum and the maximum spawn groups. So I'm going to set a minimum of 1, and there will be a maximum of 7. So that is basically how many will spawn per time. Let's just import spawner data. Now let's say you wanted your entity to only spawn in plains biomes, right? Which is a fair enough thing to want. Now, if you try to do if event.get category is equal to, what is it, biome category? If it's equal to biome category.plains, you'll find that there are multiple plains biomes. There's not just one plains biome, so that's not really going to work. The way I'm going to do this to get it to work in a specific one is to use the get name, and we can essentially do dot equals or maybe compare to, but I'm going to do dot equals, and I'm going to say a new resource location Minecraft plains. And essentially what this will do is only if the biome's registry name is Minecraft plains will this actually add the spawn. Okay, so that's how we can go ahead and do that. But this alone won't work because we need to tell it how it will spawn. So by that we need to give it a spawn rule and then register a spawn placement for it. So this is also very simple to do. Let's come back into our entity class, which we haven't touched in a while. And in here, let's just create a public static boolean. And we'll just call this can spawn. Now, this is going to need to take in a few things for this to work. So this is going to take entity type, and then this is our entity class inside of here. So for me, that's example entity. And we'll call that entity. Then we need to give it a level accessor. And I'm just going to call this level access. Then we need to pass in a mob spawn type. And I'll call that spawn type. Then we need to give it a block pos, and finally a random. And there we go, import all of those things. So these are basically in here we need to return the rules for how the entity should spawn. Now, since my entity is just an animal, you could just return animal.check animal spawn rules and pass in all those things, and that will just simply do the default animal spawn checking, which if you look at that, it just checks for the animal spawnable on, and it also checks if it's bright enough. Say if you're using a monster, okay, a monster entity, you could just say monster.check monster spawn rules. I believe there's also one for water creature, so water creature, water animal. You could say water animal.check surface water animal spawn rules. Check mob spawn rules. There's a bunch of different default vanilla spawn rules that you can use. I'm going to just use the animal spawn rules. So animal. We can actually just call that statically because this is an animal class. And then I'm going to provide some other if checks as well. So I'm also going to say and level access is instance of level, and I'll just call that level if that's the case. And then I'm going to check level.isRaining at pos. So what I'm doing here is I'm first checking the animal spawn rules. Now if they succeed, it goes on to this check right here. It checks if it's an instance of a level, which it should be, and then it checks if it's raining at the provided position. This is just so that my animal will only spawn if it's raining. Now, the reason I'm doing this if check right here is because this is raining at method simply does not exist in the level accessor class. It only exists in level. It's a bit of a weird Mojang thing. There's like 50 different layers of levels. So if you like open implementation, you can see there are a lot of different levels, different level types, and yeah, there's a lot. I don't know why there's so many. I could not tell you. There are just a huge amount of them. But yeah, so we're just checking that it's just a normal level, which it should be. We can assume that it would be. So now we can close that. And let's come into our common mod events. Yes, let's go into our mod events. Now, inside of our common setup, which we created a few tutorials ago, quite a few tutorials ago, we can do another event.enqueue and this needs to be a runnable, so we can do a lambda for spawn placements dot register. So this is us registering the actual placement functionality, so it knows what rules it needs to check. And we first need to pass in the entity type that we're registering this for. So for us, that's entity init, and then for me, that's example entity, and then we need to put .get. Then we need to provide how it will look for a valid location. So here that we need to pass in a type, and I think this might be more helpful if we actually go ahead and say spawn placements dot type, since there are loads of type classes. And we can check for in lava, in water, no restrictions, and on ground. So I'll just quickly go through where each of these are used. So in lava, this is used for striders to check that they are spawning in the lava. In water, this is used for things like squids, fish, all those different water creatures. No restrictions, this is generally used for flying entities, things like phantoms, for example, and I believe ghasts probably use those as well. And then finally, on ground is used for basically everything else. So cows, pigs, sheep, zombies, skeletons, creepers, villagers, illagers, etc. etc. Most things use on ground. So to make it simple to find, and since it's in the plains biome only, I'm going to say on ground. Finally, we need to provide it the height map that it's going to use. So if we just type in height map, or maybe it's not called height map. It is called height map, okay. So we can do height map.types. It's just an enum. And there are a few different types here. I'm not sure why they're not showing up. Eclipse is playing around. Okay, if we just type in types, we should be able to see them. So there is motion blocking no leaves, ocean floor WG, world surface, and world surface WG. So let me quickly explain all of these. So world surface is just checking for the normal world surface. Pretty simple. Ocean floor, this just checks for the normal ocean floor, nothing too complicated. Motion blocking will just check that there is no blocks in the way, essentially. And motion blocking no leaves will check essentially that there's not leaves either. So it has to be a solid block. So just normal motion blocking will allow something like leaves. It will allow essentially all those not solid blocks per se. So like glass, leaves, I can't think of anything else for some reason. Iron bars, there's a bunch of different things. But motion blocking won't check for those. Motion blocking no leaves will check that they are not there. Now, ocean floor WG and world surface WG, I'm not entirely sure about. I can't entirely remember what those specific ones were for. I'm going to be using world surface, of course. And I'm going to change this back to height map.types so that I can know for the future. Let's just put a semicolon on the end. There we go. And finally, we need to give it the actual spawn predicates for how it will spawn. And this is really simple, so it's just example entity : can spawn. And voila, that works perfectly fine. Now, you will notice we now have 3 enqueue works. And we don't need 3, we can just have 1. So let's also alter this while we're here. Let's go event.enqueueWork. Let's just do a simple lambda and give it a body. And get rid of that bracket that trailed. And let's just call our methods in here. So or generation.register_ors packet handler.init, and let's take this out of here and plonk that in there. That way we can remove both of these ones, and we will just have all of it inside this singular enqueue work. That's just going to make it a little bit cleaner for this method. That's actually it. We can now go ahead and test this. So let's just run client and we'll see if it works. Here we are in the game. I have been searching around for a while and I haven't actually been able to find one. But I know they're spawning. So if I do /kill @e brackets type is equal to tutorial mod example entity, it kills 6 of them, right? And I'm just gonna fly around a little bit to see if it'll spawn a few more. But I just can't seem to find any. And it's so weird because I know they're spawning. I think it's just because I'm absolutely mind boggled by the fact that this is all a plains biome. And that's really throwing me off actually looking for what I'm trying to find. But I just can't see any. Because like, seriously. Like, bro. We are at Y180 in a plains biome. Like, bro. Come on now. That's just illegal. But yeah, I mean, I can't find them. Even though I know they're spawning. So, I will admit, I did change the code a little bit. So instead of checking for it raining, I checked if the Y is greater than 70. I think the raining did work as well, but I've changed it to Y70 just in case the raining wasn't working. And I didn't find any either way. But I know they're existing, I just can't see them for some reason. Oh, speaking of, there we go. Wow, I've literally been searching for, what, like 20, maybe half an hour? Oh, I forgot how loud they are. I forgot how loud they are. Well, there they are then. Let me just turn these down so I can actually go and see them. I'll just turn it off because they're loud. But yeah, here they are. I was just about to run a command someone sent me in Discord and, well, here they are. Interesting. For reference, the command that I was going to run, let me just find it. So, I was going to run /tp @s and then @e type is equal tutorial mod and then example underscore entity limit is equal 1. That's the command I was going to run, and yeah, that would have brought me to this sexy guy down here. Hopefully I can find another one to prove the point that they are actually spawning. But they're so hard to find. I don't know why. I don't know if maybe the weight is just... I'm sorry, but this is just mind-boggling. I don't know if the weight is maybe too low or too high, maybe. Yeah, I mean, at least they are spawning, I guess. There's a village down here, so I'm probably not going to find one here. Okay, but if I run that command again, I bet it will find one. A different one. Yeah, it did. It found a different one. So, they're spawning. That's all I can say, I guess. So, yeah, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you guys did find this useful. If you did, please do be sure to go ahead and shove some ice cream in your ears and then press that like button. And you also might as well subscribe as well. If you really enjoyed or found it useful, please do be sure to share it around. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next tutorial. Goodbye. Also, make sure to join my Discord server, link in the description.